I need some traction.
Thank you. All right, can everyone hear me? We're good? Awesome, let's get started. So I'm not Greg Pietruszynski, which you might be seeing on the slides there and everything. I'm filling in for Greg. Greg's the CEO, but I'm the head of sales, so I'm going to do my best. But I think we'll be just fine. So I've been with Growbots now for about a year and a half. As Shar said, I'm the head of sales. Growbots, real quick, we are a prospecting automation solution. So we are essentially a database of 200 million leads that uses machine learning and AI to clean it out. And then with lead scoring and more AI, we automate emails that go out so that you can build up your pipeline. Just to give you an idea of where we're coming from. So where does the story begin? So when I joined the company, it was super, super early on. I was the only United States employee. The rest of the company was all in Poland. We had a small sales development team. They're still all in college. We had a couple engineers, the two founders. One was head of product closing deals. Greg, the CEO, was also closing deals. And then I joined the team to help out. So when we first got started there, the main thing that we were looking at was survival. We already went through 500 startups. The traction really wasn't there just yet, but what we wanted to focus on an area that we could start to build off of so that we could keep the lights on for the next day. So what we did was we looked at a couple different go-to-market strategies to try to figure out which one would be the best for us to really hunker down on and focus all of our attention on. Can you guys see that? It's kind of hard to see, but some of the options that we had was PPC marketing. I used to work at Kissmetrics, which was an amazing marketing brand. But in our current situation, we didn't have the luxury of waiting for inbound leads to come in and building out that brand. And also, we didn't have anyone in marketing on the team. So that also really didn't help us as far as making those decisions. But then also the conversion rates that we were looking at, with click-through rates of about 0.5%. Cold emailing at the time was around 1-2%. At the time, we were sending out blanket emails. We had a profile that we were going after, and we were just hitting people up, right? Cold emailing, going right after them. We were not seeing that greater returns. We were not seeing a lot of results from that. Now, cold calling, we didn't have the luxury of because our SDR team was in Poland, but from my past experience, around 2-3% you'd be getting with cold emailing. But what we discovered was Greg and Luke and some of the personal emails we were sending out, they were getting 8-10% success rates. So when you actually spent the time to actually do your homework, tailor that message to that person, understand their situation, and send that message out, you saw success. Now, obviously, I think that makes sense for a lot of us, right? You do the homework, they read the email, you're not a robot, they appreciate it. But in our situation, we didn't have the resources to do that and keep scaling and keep growing and get to that $1 million pipeline. So what we wanted to do was take that personal communication, try to automate it and be as smart as we could with it so that we could scale that with the limited resources that we had at the time. So after we went through a couple of frameworks and a couple sessions with the entire company, we really started to take off. And that's what we're going to be going over today. Some of the things that we went through at Growbots. I'm going to have some material that I can email out afterwards too that's going to go into a lot more detail of exactly what we did, cheat sheets, and a lot more information so that afterwards you guys can take action on this. But for today, at a high level, I want to go over what we did, what we learned. But you can see here, we were only doing a couple $1,000s MRR when I first joined. Once we implemented some of these frameworks, we actually were able to grow around $320,000 MRR right now, which I'm super proud of. So what is the perfect demand gen engine? The first thing, especially in our situation, was we were looking for something that could be as automated as possible. Going back to what I said, we have limited resources, but we wanted to scale this thing out. So how can we be super intelligent about doing this so that we didn't have to hire a bunch of humans in order to execute more and more and more? The next thing is the scalability too. So with the scalability, it wasn't the scalability wasn't the number one thing at the time because I wanted the company to survive. So it wasn't as much as, okay, well, months down the road, are we going to 10x this? But as it started to work, that was really important. So you want to keep that in mind too. And then the last thing is the predictable results. You want to be able to pull different levers, test, measure, learn. You have to keep iterating. And if you're not going to have predictable results, then you don't know why these things are happening. So by outlining the process, doing it with a team, and working through a framework or a workflow, you're able to document and understand this. So what are the 3 steps for us that we did at Growbots for us to build out this demand gen engine? Now, We focused mostly on the email side because we knew with email it could scale. So the first thing that we wanted to do was get smarter with targeting. As I said, we had a profile, right? An ideal customer profile. We're going after VP of sales, 1 to 50 employees, and boom, let's start sending emails out. That wasn't working. It was ruining our reputation. It was spam. There's all these other things that can start to come into play when you're doing that. And quite frankly, it's just lazy, right? So I'm going to walk you through a framework that we did. It's somewhat popular, so you guys might be familiar with it. But then, like I said, we actually have an extensive walkthrough that I can send out that walk you through how we did that. And then the communication, what we wanted to do was change it. So 1, we wanted to make it more personalized, but at scale. 2, we wanted to make it more casual, more personal. There's a lot of emails that go out, and I myself receive a lot of emails. They're sometimes too professional, too boring, and they go straight and they're archived. So we started to play around with different strategies of, well, how can we spark interest? How can we stand out from the crowd? And we also have those templates that I'm going to show a couple today, and then we have an entire library that I can send out for you guys all to reference. Now, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's just more for, once you guys see these templates, try them out. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, but I think when you're armed with more and more materials, it's only going to help. And then the last thing is the process and the automation. So I'm going to go over some tools that are in the space. I'm not just going to sit here and sell. So we'll go over different areas of what might work for you, semi-automation, commit automation. The last slide, if I have some time, I'd love to dive into some of the new AI tools that are coming out to help write personalized emails, things like that. I think it's really, really cool stuff that's coming in the sales world. Perfect. So this probably looks pretty familiar, right? You guys are starting a company. The first thing you're going to start targeting is, hey, what country are they in? What's their location? What's the industry? Is it medical? Is it computer software? Company size? Where are we actually targeting? And then who's the title that we're going after? Time and time again, I talk to new companies, and those are the things that they tell me. And it pretty much stops there. Now, it's a good start, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's other areas that you want to consider, though, too. So being hyper-focused on, what's the city? Fresno compared to San Francisco are going to be 2 different kinds of CEOs, right? And then maybe that messaging is going to be different. Their problems and the reason, the current situation of the company is going to be very different just depending on the location. Technology is super interesting when it applies. So companies like Data Nice, for instance, Built With, they can actually go out and find technologies that people are using, web-facing technologies. Hey, are you using Google Analytics, Pardot, things like that? There's even HQ data. They actually go out and they'll actually find offline data, the almighty Salesforce information that a lot of people look for, things like that. When you have these technologies, it helps you, 1, it gets you smarter for later on when I show you about different unique messaging. It makes your messaging that much smarter. But 2, it gives you a better appreciation for where these people are coming from and what their current situation is. Competitors, once again, a better understanding. Industry influencers is pretty interesting. I know we did this where, hey, I noticed that you follow Heaton Shaw, and he's really big into lean analytics and lean startups, and you can have a pitch around that. Just another data point for you to maneuver, but then also to see if those sort of people, those like-minded individuals, yeah, they might all be CEOs, but maybe the ones that follow certain people are able to trigger more, get more success. Reference customers is pretty interesting. One that's not on here that's really good is also understanding other people within their company. And this is one of the templates that we do send out where you actually reference, you go a step above the decision maker. So maybe you go to the CEO. Like in our case, maybe someone would email Greg asking, how does Chad build his pipeline every month? And it then shows some sort of homework and research, but you can do that all up front. So it's more of a batched process and you're not doing it in a one-off approach. Now, the ideal customer profile there is really great, and building out some of those additional segments makes it even more powerful. Once again, awesome. But you need to take a step back, and this is where we sucked at this. We were pretty bad. We had to take a step back and really start to understand, well, why the hell are people even buying us? What's that extra step that we need to dive into? And what we did is we used the framework Jobs to Be Done to really dive deeper into why people are hiring Growbots for the solution that they were looking for. So this Mario example, I forget where this is from, but I think it's super powerful. Little Mario, right? Everyone's played Mario before, right? No Mario? So little Mario, if he gets hit once, he's dead, right? That's not good. Game over, you gotta start over, super annoying. So little Mario is looking for a flower. Right? You could sell little Mario the flower, but what you're selling Mario is not the flower. What you're selling him is survival. Right? He's big Mario now. He can throw those fireballs and hit bricks and do some other Mario things. That's what you're actually looking at. That's the actual solution that you're selling. And that's what we had to get to really understand what our messaging was for all of our different profiles and all of our different targets. So just real quick, what the jobs to be done framework looks like and how we did it internally was the first thing is you got to talk to your customers. So 2 ways you can do that, right? Talk to your sales reps, talk to your customer success reps. Talk to the people that are actually interacting with your customers. They're going to tell you the stories, the actual reasons why people are buying the tool. Maybe you can dive into, and we actually provide a lot of different questions to ask. What's the current situation, and why are they actually looking at it at this point? Not just, what's the number one need? What's the high-level question? You're done. You really have to listen and dive deeper into it. From there, talk to your customers. Set up interviews, maybe customers, obviously customers that you already have, those would be the easiest interviews to have, but then also interview customers that you have not had yet. Maybe ones that you want to get to. You'd be amazed of when you ask for advice and you ask for things about understanding more, how much more open people are compared to when you ask for a demo or money, right? A lot more people will sit down with a cup of coffee and explain to you where they're coming from and what their conditions are, and compared to just a cold email or whatnot. Now, from there, you're going to have a lot of data points, right? You're going to be doing a lot of interviews. What do you do with it? From there, you actually you turn it into a job story. So jobs to be done, they have this nice workflow where it's when I want to, so I can. So in this Mario situation, let's see here. It's when Mario is small, I want to get a flower so I can survive, right? What you're selling is the survival of Mario. You're not selling that flower, as I said before. So it's super important for everyone to focus on that real meaning of where people are coming from. So once you have your different stories and different situations, you'll want to go back, from the slide before, which a lot of people do in the first place, but you build out that ideal customer profile. And then from there, you can start to mix and match and see, okay, from these profiles, these are the situations and conditions people are in. And then after that, what you're going to start to see is it's actually building out your messaging, and it's building out your different reasonings of why people want to buy your solution. So number 5 there is actually going through and taking those stories, taking actually what the people have told you, and then turning that into different copy and different messaging for you to reach out to individuals. Just because I have it on the slide here, I just want to mention. So yeah, if you guys are interested, email chad@growbots.com. This is a large ebook that we have on this section because we know it's so important. We work with a lot of small and medium-sized companies, and we time and time again notice this is where they gloss over. They go right to A/B testing the content, which I'll get into next, but this is really, really important. This is actually more important than anything else. This drives the entire process to actually get good results. So send it over. Happy to send it out this afternoon. Awesome. So after we went through and we did that months and months ago, after we went through and we did that, a lot of different things started to happen. One, we started to see some traction, right? So we saw some success that was actually predictable. We knew what the input is and what the output was going to be for these different targets. The targets got a lot more focused. It wasn't just sales, and we started emailing. It was very particular with the different profiles, and then we actually had different job stories that we were testing on top of that, and then we could actually see from the different messaging of those job stories which one were working. So a lot more levers that were being pulled, but which is great because we actually could figure out the right combination. Use smarter personalization. So from there, and this is actually something that if I have time at the end, I want to get into a little bit. You could actually then start to set up different blurbs, not just custom fields, right? A lot of people are familiar with custom field customization. You could actually go through and set up different blurbs to really personalize those messages. But also, and we have a couple good examples of us personalize the message without ever referencing that person, just us understanding what we're predicting their situation. And we were so good at predicting their situation that how the hell do you know that, right? And from there, that makes a very easy sales call. As a sales manager, you love to see those win rates go up, and it's just setting up the success from the very beginning. Better results, but better reputation. Right? Let me tell you, sending out those blanket emails, being in spam, doing those things is never fun. Right? It's not great. It's not a good image. But when you start to do what I went over as far as the different targeting and understanding the job, that doesn't happen anymore. People are not considering your email spam. Yeah, you're going to get frustrated people here and there. That's part of the job. But you're going to start to see much more success there. But you're also going to be keeping your reputation. Reputation as a brand, but also a reputation of your domain. There's a lot of other things that really start to come into play there, which is really, really key. And I think that's really huge. So just from us doing the jobs to be done framework, we were able to increase our success rate from around 2.5% to around 7% just with that. And that's not even with some other things that we started to implement. Cool. So let's get into a little bit on the emails. You guys can't read any of that, can you? Because I can't. Awesome. Well, let me tell you. So option one was, these are both emails that Greg received. Option one was a cold email where basically the guy found him on LinkedIn, assumed that he used LinkedIn, and then asked for a meeting. I think there was a misspelling in there too, and the signature is not too professional. So the one thing that pops out to me, yeah, it is short. I'm a big fan of short emails. I think they're, well, because I read those. I don't read the long ones. But if you actually get into the details here, you can tell that there was no thought or understanding of what Greg was doing at the time and where Greg was going. Greg did not respond to that email. Now, the second email, yes, the second email is a little bit longer, but I think Greg used this because it really does show that this person created a casual but personal email and definitely did their homework. So from there, you can actually go in and you can see that the sales rep, they actually referenced how many people are employed at Growbots. So they went in, you could do a batch process of this up front where you actually find all the employees up front. From there, they actually did the math of what's the ROI, what's the time that Greg is spending managing, what's the ROI there. And then after that, he then goes in and actually references a URL and then goes into an event that Greg was attending. So there's a lot of different things that are coming onto here. But when Greg sees this, it sparks his interest because he knows, yeah, I'm actually in that situation. Yeah, this is a worry of mine. And then from there, it's going to an event that Greg was attending. So there was definitely some homework involved there, but it's a really well-written email. And then the signature is pretty straightforward, but much more professional than poor Dave on the left. So as I mentioned in the very beginning, we knew personalizing and customizing every single email was going to drive better results. We saw the numbers, makes sense, right? But what can we do to make it so it's more scalable, right? So we can scale this thing. So you can see here a nice example of going through and actually customizing and doing all these iterations. But what if we can create templates in different styles that we can actually go in and change at scale for every single person that we're communicating with. So on a very simple level, you can do custom fields. At a more advanced level, you can do and-if statements, or if-then statements. And that will actually customize the blurb for every single situation. But then you can empower that by all the different data point segmentations and then also the job stories that you had from before. So if you're not familiar with cold emailing campaigns, just real quick here, mostly on the right-hand side, cold email campaign, it's going to last 4 or 5, I push for 6 or 7 emails. It's usually not going to be just that one email and you're done. From there, you're going to be following up from those emails when no one replies. There are a lot of solutions, and I'll get into a couple this afternoon that will help automate this, so you're not spending the time actually following up with all these individuals. But those are usually about 2 to 7 days. And then here's the big one, short, casual, and positive. We try to be a little goofy sometimes here at Growbots because it gets results, but we want to make sure it's short, to the point, and it's casual. When you come in real professional, introducing yourself, using a lot of words, that person's going to archive it instantly. It's not going to drive the results that you want. One thing that we do here at Growbots is we do a whole email campaign. We wait 90 days, and we have another campaign that triggers after that. So when we put someone, we do all that upfront research and the prospecting and the lead scoring, and we do all this to prepare that person to actually contact. It's not just a month and then we're done. It's a month, wait 3 months, and then we're going to go after them again. So it's great to see that work it can be repeated, and it's an extremely easy workflow. Now, as I mentioned with the jobs to be done, we also have a lot of email templates. Email templates are a little bit different. As I said, this is more to empower users with more information. Our best template could be your worst template. Depends on the industry, depends on what the job you're doing, but at least you can have different creative ideas. And we have some pretty creative ideas. If one thing we do really, really, really well is write some funny emails, which is great. Cool. How's everyone doing? We're good? Cool. All right, so let's get into a little bit on a couple examples, and doggone it, we're not going to be able to read any of this. All right, well, I'll just tell you what's going on. So the first thing I want to mention before I move on is you have to realize it has to pass the iPhone test. You send someone an email, just assume they're reading it on their iPhone. So there's a lot of things that come into play here, like Greg Pietruszynski. That last name is, it's a doozy. So I would actually recommend, if I was managing Greg, maybe even try Greg from Growbots. Greg from Growbots might relate to someone a little bit more, and you're utilizing the iPhone space for an introduction than Greg Pietruszynski, because not that many people are going to know who he is. So there's an area there. The subject here is pretty interesting. So our subject here, I'm actually not a fan of. It's first name Greg, right? First name X Greg. I've seen this before. To me, it comes off a little lazy and spammy. But I've had many discussions with this with my team, and numbers show over and over again, in our world, this actually drives very good results. Our open rates are good. It gets to the message. For some reason, it works. So it's one of those things where my gut feeling says no, but the numbers say yes. We've been doing this for a while with first name and then Greg, or first name Chad. And then we get into the actual email. So this was Greg targeting a small CEO. So from here, we knew from our past research that a size of this company in this vertical, that this CEO has a couple sales reps, probably not in charge of the pipeline, but is obviously a big worry, because as you're a small company, as we're all here today, you're trying to build traction and a go-to-market strategy and everything. So Greg referenced this in a more friendly way, a more casual way of, hey, wanted to see what your strategy was for 2017. And then we go to the social proof, where we are referencing a web developer who actually was able to use Growbots, because Growbots was actually able to tell them when someone's website was out of date, when it wasn't responsive, and then they could email them with that exact situation. Once again, we were providing that person a trigger that they could then email, and a trigger is always a huge, huge win when you're targeting. Would you like to meet for 16 minutes? Real small, goofy thing, but once again, we do some of these goofy things here and there. You'd be surprised of how 16 minutes would be a little bit more, it sparks the interest a little bit more than 15 minutes, but I know it's something small. But you see that a lot here at Growbots, little things like that we try to iterate. Some work, some don't. All right, and then this is one of our customers. So this is Gusto. Gusto was sending an email out to Seattle companies. And once again, in the subject line, it was Seattle company Gusto. Okay, so you're relating it to the location. You're also relating it to, Gusto has a bigger brand than Growbots. A lot of people know Gusto. But it's also then related to that company, so it sparks the interest. And a different approach. You actually don't see any custom fields here, but what we're actually doing, or the customer was actually doing here, was being in a more playful manner, trying to sell Gusto and some of the reasons why they should at least continue the conversation with some fun facts. So the first one, there's 768 businesses. That's half of Starbucks within Gusto. So hey, there's a social proof. People are using Gusto in your city, right? From there, what is it? Seattle's ranked the most literate city. So that's, what is it? So a lot of people are probably using HR platforms. And then the last one, they name drop Kenny G. I don't know how you don't reply to that, because it's Kenny G. And they play a nice word where, hey, his middle name is G, that's probably, or last name is G, that's probably for Gusto. Once again, you're reading that email, and they have your interest now. Now, after that, it goes into a little bit more of the call to action. So hey, I would love to tell you a little bit more on what we're actually helping, what's the actual situation. Now that they have their attention, they're going in for the meeting. And then finally, and this is interesting, this is something that we don't do. We always go from the meeting, go for the call. Like, that's what we want. We want to have that conversation so that we can continue from there. But maybe Gusto, during their research, they discovered that everyone has HR platforms. So to ask you to drop what you're doing and call me to talk about an HR platform isn't possible. It won't work. Maybe that's not the situation people are in. It's just asking, what are you using? So it's just trying to start that conversation, and the follow-up there can be maybe some value adds of how they're different than the competition or whatever that might be. So a little bit different. Oh, and then the name. But a little bit different than us. But once again, this drove really, really good results. And the customization here was, one, doing your upfront research on Seattle, which is a little bit of a different method, and then from there relating it to the location so that they kind of feel that everyone else within Seattle is using them. Cool. So people love it. So we do get a lot of emails of, hey, I get all these crappy emails all day, every day, and I never reply to them. But this one jumped out at me. Yes, let's talk. Now this is huge for us because we sell cold emailing. So people see that and they want to see, well, what's in the secret sauce? How do we do that? And it's a lot of the stuff that I'm going over today. So, but hey, thanks for reaching out. This is great. Yada yada yada. Here's another example that. Yeah, I can barely read. But it's much more on the custom field, so a little bit more of going in and understanding what your company is, what's the solution, and then adding a complete custom field so that someone can do all the upfront work, up front, and then from there automate it moving forward. And these are the emails I really, really love, where it's a reply, it's a follow-up, and it's super short to the point. Hey, I know you're using Pardot. What do you use for sales automation? Now, it'd be kind of risky to do that as your first email because it's like, well, but as a follow-up email, you already have the introduction, they know who you're from, but from here you're going right for, hey, let's start the conversation of what are you doing for sales automation, and you at least get the replies to go from there. And you can see we had really, really good results with this one, too. Cool. So from our changes, we were able to 10x our success rate. So we were working with the same amount of leads, same amount of people, but by changing what we were doing up front, by understanding why we were reaching out to people, and then by getting more creative and focusing just on emailing, no more cold calling in different areas, we were able to actually go in and increase that time and time again, which sort of goes back to the graph in the beginning of where we actually really started to hit our traction. The tool didn't change much. Our selling didn't really change much. It was really just getting in front of those people and having more of at-bats. Awesome. So the last thing is going to be the sales tools. So the main thing here is with Outbound, cool, email tools. So yes, we're going to tout more of the one-on-one emails. This is where they're really strong at. So if you have some templates and you need to be sending those over as like an account executive or a vice president, you need to be using that. Those are really good tools. I really think they dropped the ball when it comes to setting up a campaign, putting a bunch of people in a campaign, tracking the analytics, and really understanding what's working and what's not. That's where Outreach and SalesLoft come in. Those are really good solutions when it comes to the campaign side. Outreach does a fantastic job of letting you A/B test, which is fantastic. I think SalesLoft has the same sort of workflow. Outreach is much more sophisticated, so that's a good and bad thing, right? If you like sophistication, go at it. Some people use it for 3 months and is like, I don't know how to use this still. But it has its place, right? So you can go in there and you can definitely crush it with both those tools. Growbots, automatic in the sense, I think Greg put that there because automatic in the sense that we grab the leads and we have AI and machine learning that sends out the emails, does out-of-office rescheduling and some other things. But it's going to be more similar to the semi-automated where you're creating the campaigns and then sending those out. Alrighty, so automated responses. I'm actually not too familiar with these two. Well, I know of the tools, Serious Insight and Focus. They have some sort of algorithm that when you reply to emails, they will then reply back. I have never used this though, so I can't speak too much on it. But what I want to do is pause here because there's a new surge of AI tools that are coming out, which are really interesting. So on the calendar side, you have tools like Clara and XAI, and I've interacted with them. I have not used them. I've interacted with them, and it's been fantastic, especially Amy from XAI. That one stands out to me as far as using that tool. And that's really neat because there's bots that are able to reschedule and, once again, as I mentioned, take away the tedious and manual activities so that we can focus on the personalization and the research. There's a solution there. Nova AI. Nova AI would be a competitor in this space here, and they will actually scrape and find information on individuals and personalize the emails. Once again, I have not used that too much, but I know some companies have seen really good success with that because they can do it at scale. Like one person can then personalize thousands of emails without having to go in and actually do any research. But then some people said the personalization just isn't there yet. But that's a general trend of AI. Like it will get there, and I actually think it's really cool that companies are going there and taking that risk. Am I missing any? No. Cool. So final takeaways here, and then happy to answer some questions. So what's the takeaway? So the first thing is to understand your ideal customer profile, but I think a lot of companies do that already. But the next thing is to really use some sort of targeting framework. Jobs to be done is what we did, to really have a deeper understanding and a more segmented understanding of exactly the different sort of personas that you're going after and why people, what their situations, and why they're buying it. From there, you have to get creative and write more casual, personalized emails. There's a lot of, it's very easy to write a professional email. And yeah, it might sound good to you, but you have to understand on the other end that this person's seeing a lot of emails on their end, and you want to stand out from the crowd. So take the risk, actually. That's what we try to go for. It's usually not going to get you in trouble, but for the most part, it's going to help you stand out from the crowd and drive better results. Third thing is to create that tool stack. You need the analytics in place. You need to automate those little things. And to do that, you have to use some tools that are involved. And there's more tools coming every year, which is really awesome and fantastic. But there's already some really good tools in place that I went over that can help build that stack for you as long as you do that upfront research. And the last thing, you got to keep testing. Like for here at Growbots, everything that we did a couple months ago. Now we're really testing with a lot of even more automation with lead scoring. So going in and lead scoring before we actually send out the campaigns. But then also what we have, it's not in our tool yet, but we're actually testing out lead scoring from the replies. So if you get lead scoring from your Salesforce, from the replies, and from other things, we can bring that all together to get super focused on who's the next person that you should email. So that we can start to predict, to know, hey, this is the situation that this person's in, and then this is going to help drive better results so that sales development rep can focus more on personalizing or some other things. Missing one. That's for the most part, we have some other things as far as like, and if-then statements too, which is pretty interesting, which will allow you to actually go through and look at, hey, if this person's in this location with this title, with this much funding, they've been around for this many years, the if-thens all fill in to create a custom email. This is a little risky because it's obviously a lot more scalable, but there's a lot more moving parts in it, and that's another thing that we're currently testing out. It's not really driving more results, but we do see how if we can nail this, it would drive better results because we don't need to hire more and more SDRs to drive these personalizations. We have a developer do it, which is pretty interesting too. Cool. Awesome. Well, that's it. That's all I got. What do you?
Oh. I have a really loud voice. So we're going to do, yay.
There you go.
Woo. Okay. How does it work? Oh, okay. Hi. So we have about 15 minutes to do questions and answers with Chad. So everyone should have Chad's email address written down. And if you don't email him and ask for the templates that he's offered, then shame on you. So does anyone have any questions? Apparently we can play with this mic thing. It's very government-like in this room. There's a push to speak, and it might come on, and you'll be able to ask your question. If not, I will run to you with a mic, or I'll just repeat it with my loud, booming voice. Any questions for Chad? Sure. We don't know how to. Here we go. I got the mic. I'll run around the room. I need exercise.
Damn it.
Okay.
Hello? Okay.
Oh, there we go.
One of the things we're having trouble with our SDRs is converting people. I mean, we do cold calling, we do the cold emails, is getting them to actually attend a demo, because that's a goal. Can you share any strategies to maximize the seating rate or whatever you want to call it to get people watching your demo or be in your sales meeting?
Yeah, no, exactly. So we had a huge, we were in the same position. It was a couple months ago. And now in our situation, what we discovered actually going through and looking at the markets that we were actually about to schedule, these people were not qualified enough. So what we did as a sales team is we actually went in and made harder qualifications so that we were getting people, when they were talking to our account executives, much more qualified so that our win rates would go up and we were spending more time on people that would actually buy. We did not see a problem of people that would pass the eyeball test and the information that we had at hand that were not showing up. Now, I don't know if that was your case, but definitely look at who's actually not attending. If you're, we'd be targeting maybe a super small company that might not be able to afford us just yet, and there's a million things going on. So there's that. We had things in place, but I want to run them by you. Some automated things in place with, hey, you have a meeting in an hour, Calendly to do round robins, but then also to remind people about their meetings coming up. We played around with SDRs emailing manually before the meetings, but we didn't see any changes there. The automated Calendly and reminder solutions were doing the same thing. But take a look at who's actually not attending and go from there, because that's what we actually saw. It wasn't, the numbers were high, but looking at the actual people, we weren't missing much.
Did you do any phone calling? Like the day before, trying to get them on the phone? Is there anything happening there? I realize that can't scale, but as easily.
Who are you going after? SMB mid-market, or are you going after enterprise?
SMB contractor market. So
yeah. So we're in a position where when I first started, everyone was in Poland, so there was no phone calling.
Okay.
So we didn't even have that luxury of entertaining the idea. But yeah, if someone's super qualified and you're excited for that meeting, maybe have a different workflow to reach out and do that. But for SMB though, you have to sort of keep in mind of, there's a numbers game, it's a speeds game, and if you're spending time making those calls, what are you not doing?
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah.
There was a question right down here. Is there still one down here? No? Oh, yep.
Oh.
The team that was in Poland, there was no specific call to action to make calls. The automation was directly tied to emails. That was the strategy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, in the situation we were in, we could not make phone calls. We're in a different situation now, but when we first started, and a lot of these things that we did, it was 100% emails. Even someone didn't show up or whatever that might have been, it was email. I was the only one that could make a phone call, and I was on demos all day, every day. Yeah.
Awesome. I think there's some questions. Yep. Go ahead. See if your little government button works.
So think about really early stage startups, right? Software startups, let's say, really early stage, probably the first customer is still not in the door, right? So the proof in the pudding is still not there. Now, how does your strategy change for that really early stage startups?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, are you ready to scale? If it's that early, are you still in that learning phase of getting your first 10, 20 customers, grinding the pavement, just getting in front of them and closing those deals? We're at the position where we had, I forget how many customers it was, but we had a handful of customers, and we had a product that we knew was ready to scale. The bottleneck was actually just talking to those people and getting them, and we had those limitations of we could only, hey, we had to use email or marketing, so we went with email. So I think there's different phases, right? So in the beginning, it's more about understanding, what is the actual solution? Do you have an actual solution? Is it still product market fit? But then after product market fit, once you actually start to build out that customer base, this is where the scalability, going in and starting to scale comes into play.
Thank you.
Awesome. I have a question way back here where all the tall people are.
Oh.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Just a quick question about providing any links in the emails that you're sending, so
Yeah.
maybe to short videos and things like that. Thanks.
Yeah, so no, very interesting. I'm not a big fan of links, trackable links, I should say. When you put a trackable link in there, Growbots or any other email tool, that will up your chances of being spam or flagged or whatever that might be. Never ever do an attachment if you're doing mass emails. A lot of tools won't allow you to do that anyways, because that makes it a really heavy email, which makes it much harder. But if you are going to do a link, I know at Growbots we ask if you can turn it on and off. Because obviously a lot of people like click-through rates, right? It's a very obvious thing to track. But if no one's reading the email, then who gives a damn about the click-through rate, right? So keep in mind there. Obviously, always store in the cloud. The best thing to do, putting my marketing hat on, was to put that collateral onto your website, have a sign-up form. So if someone does click on it and they want to download that, whatever that is, they put their information in so you can close the loop.
Awesome. We've got time for maybe one more question. Oh, yep.
Figured out.
Oh.
Okay, there I go. Canada has a pretty aggressive anti-spam legislation. Do you get around that by sending your email from the U.S., or how are you getting around that?
Short answer, no. You're 100% right. Castle is extremely aggressive. Castle, I forget the Australian one. That one is also very aggressive. So there's two things that happen. One, a lot of our Canadian customers are targeting the United States, and that's a big thing. If they are emailing in Canada, it's much, much lower volume, and it's much more hyper-focused, so that your targets are going to be maybe a couple hundred people or maybe 100 people. You're not going to be able to list out of 10,000 people and blast that out. I would not recommend that. emailing into a Canadian company. We have emailed Canadian companies. We have not gotten in trouble. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but for the most part, it's when we are selling to a Canadian company. One of the things that we clarify is, who are you going after, and is it in the United States? But you're 100% right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chad, for all your insight today. I personally have used Amy and Clara. They're a little bit pricey, but it is a lifesaver. And I have people that show up to my office asking me if Clara is here for her meeting. So thanks, everyone. Please give Chad a big round of applause.
I need some traction. You need some traction. Let's get some traction.